Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode number 7 of the VonDubCast. Today's guest is Simon Vanasse. He's one of my really close friends, more like a brother to me. Met him when he was 19. He moved to Slave Lake, Alberta from just south of Montreal. Frelichburg, I believe, is the name of the town he grew up in. And he was kind of not sure what he was doing with his life at that point. His one of his really close friends had decided to go over across the pond to go fight for our country, and he was thinking of maybe doing the same, but decided maybe he would try a crack at the Alberta oil patch before he made that decision. So he came over for a winter, met my dad and myself, and we kind of got along quite good off the start. Maybe a little contentious while we got to know each other. We're both young and both stubborn young guys, so I really had the privilege of watching Simon grow into the man he is today. He was very reactionary, as we talk about on the podcast. He was very reactionary. We could kind of get his goat pretty quickly when he first moved, but he definitely has settled down and become a lot more mature. And some things we speak about on this podcast really changed him as a human and brought him forward a couple steps that I think might have taken him a little longer if he wasn't forced onto the path that he was. I think definitely if he had the choice, he would have done things maybe different ways, but with the cards that were given to him, he handled it in an impeccable way that I knew we had to come on and talk about if he was willing, and I can't say thank you enough to how vulnerable and open Simon was to talk about some of the tougher subjects that we kind of get into on the back half of this podcast. But I think it was really important to show, and I think there's a lot of people that might be in his position or have been in his position and maybe didn't handle it in the same way with the same outlook. And I think he maybe provides a path forward and a little understanding that it's not easy and you're going to have a lot of emotions going through something like that. But I just think it's very important, a very important subject to talk about. And I think we kind of got to a very beautiful place surrounding it, even if there is a lot of emotion there still and a lot of complex emotions in those types of arenas. So, yeah, I think again, can't say thank you enough, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy this one. I think we got down into the deep level. That's a bit more of what people want to hear on something like this. So yeah, I think you guys are really going to enjoy. Like always, any feedback can be sent to VonDubCast@gmail.com. I'm still looking for guest suggestions, tips to improve, things you'd like to hear, subjects you need to hear about, anything like that you can send there. And if anybody is enjoying and wants to leave me a review on iTunes or Spotify, it does really help out, helps more people see that. And if you hear one of these podcasts that maybe you know somebody in your life that would maybe enjoy it, if you could just pass it on, maybe ask them if they want to take a listen. Don't never force it on. I don't want to force this on anybody, but it is free. And if you think someone would enjoy it, it does really help out a lot. Word of mouth is really what gets these kind of things going. So I'm still having a ton of fun, and I hope you guys are enjoying listening to them. All right, have fun. All right, welcome everybody. Episode 7 of the VonDubCast. My guest today is a good friend of mine. His name is Simon Vanasse. He moved to Slave Lake when he was a young gentleman and got to know me. He worked with my dad and kind of came into my life like a wrecking ball at that time. Another strong male presence. A couple years older than me. It was very interesting times getting to know each other. He came from Montreal, had a very different outlook on things, came from just south of the big city of Montreal, had kind of seen a whole different worldview than me at that time coming in. I don't know how old I was, maybe, 14, 15 at the time, seeing him coming in, and it was very exciting. So, welcome, Simon. Thanks for being here today.
Hey, the pleasure is all mine, Nick. I'm very, very impressed with your work. This is awesome.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So where I kind of want to start off, I've had lots of people on talking about my university career and where I went from there, but I haven't had a lot to talk about where I grew up in Slave Lake. And I think you had a pretty fresh perspective getting to move into it and kind of see Slave Lake for the first time at an older age. What was your first impressions when you moved to Slave Lake? What did you think about it?
Oh, well, there was a bit of a culture difference, uh, but
Mm-hmm.
I also came from a small town in Quebec. It's called Frelichburg, so it's a mix of
Right.
agriculture and stuff like that. So the small town feel, I was already very much in my comfort zone there, and then things just happen so fast and safe. You just get to work and you get to meet a lot of other young men who are in the same boat as you, which is not really fit for same route as other most kids do with going to college, university, and all that stuff. It's all mostly about trades and working and working lots. So you definitely create a lot of
Mhm.
solid bonds right away that way. I took a liking to Slave immediately. Um, for me, it's different than you. Like Slave is where you grew up as a kid, and then when you went to
Yeah.
university, you kind of started discovering really who you were. And for me, it's the opposite. I came to Slave and then kind of became my own person. So for
Yeah, branch out from there.
exactly, so it's so for me, it holds a very special place in my heart, and I think it's a beautiful little community,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm a big fan of Slave Lake,
Yeah.
that's for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly it. I think when I went to university, I also got to branch out a lot, like I said, and like I've talked about on this podcast. But I think something I haven't really talked about was going to university and seeing all those things that you just take for granted about a small town and about growing up there, and seeing the pauses that come out of there. I think the politeness and the uh, respect for women and how you talk to people is very different. And remember being very surprised talking to people from the city and kind of just how they go about life, opening doors, those kind of things. I felt very proud of where I came from, and people would be very impressed by my manners and my politeness when I went about just day to day things. And I think that's something you take for granted growing up in a small town like that. You don't think that's anything less than normal. That's just how people treat each other. And I think that's lost a lot of the time these days with people not getting to feel that kind of homegrown process. And it's not just your parents keeping an eye on you and raising you, it is the town. You might be just hanging around the hockey rink, but you have and if you're doing something dumb, there's going to be 10
Your
different
parents
parents grabbing you, giving you a
will
smack on
find
the back of the head.
out. Yeah, but
Yeah, exactly. And they'll find out that's exactly it.
but it's not a shot at city people. It's just the fact that they live in masses, and here you want to be extra, maybe a little bit extra kind and respectful, because you'll bump into that person probably 5 more times that week, whether it's the grocery store or at work.
Yeah, exactly.
And Albertans are, like you said, they're very polite. I remember walking in the bear trails and people just say, "Hey, how's your day going?" And you never really met the person before, and can you imagine doing that in Montreal? You're walking in the
Yeah.
old Montreal and by the St. Lawrence River, and you bump into some people, and hey, how you doing? And they just look at you and just walk away.
Yeah.
So it's a small town thing, and I love it, and I really
Mhm. Yeah, it's a probably, I'm sure it was a bit of a change for you to come there, but yeah, like you say, as soon as you get to know the people and you get kind of brought into that culture and they let you in, it's definitely a great feeling and a great place to be once you enter into that inner circle of what everyone's got going on. They really, you're part of the family and you're part of
yeah.
that dynamic that is very positive. I don't think it gets enough of
No,
what it deserves in that.
it doesn't. Like you said,
Yeah, so
when they let you in, they let you in, and the sense of belonging to a community is something that's it's it's this very positive thing I find. And for me, I
for
came here
sure.
very young. You come from a province that's a little bit more outcast to Albertans.
Mhm.
Quebec kind of tends to rock the boat and have its own special views on things. But once you start, doing 30, 40, 50 days in a row of working in the
Mhm.
trenches with the guys at minus 30 or late nights or weekends, and at that point, it doesn't matter. You just become one of them. And a lot of people are not from here. People just come here for the opportunity,
Mhm.
whether it's people from the Atlantic, sorry, the Maritimes, or uh, Great
Yeah.
Britain, Saskatchewan, and other Albertans that come here for work. We're all foreigners here in a way,
Yeah.
and then you kind of make a family of your own, because everybody's away from their original.
I definitely think that is a big piece of it. Just the harshness of the environment and that cold that you deal with, and especially when you layer on hard work on top of that, it really bonds people together very quickly. And I think that oil and gas kind of dynamic is something that takes a lot of heat in the media for it. But they, again, just like the small town, there's a lot of easy attack vectors you can jump right on, but
Hmm.
you don't see the good positive parts of it like that. So, how old were you when you made the move from Fredericksburg to Slave, Simon?
20 years old, or 19, 20,
20 years old.
19.
So, 2019. So late, almost out of your teenage years. And what kind of how was life going for you at that point? How much? What were you doing with your life? You had graduated. Where were you working? What prompted that change?
Well, I was up to no good. I was doing a lot of nothing. I wasn't doing well in school, and in
Right.
Quebec and Ontario, BC. If you want to really do well, education is a big factor. Unfortunately, I never took it as seriously as I should have, and it didn't come naturally for me to
Hmm.
succeed in school. And I kind of remember my buddy Sam, who's practically like my brother. We grew up together. He deployed to Afghanistan, and uh, and he was making lots of money. And I kind of thought, maybe that's a path for me. And I was kind of talking to my dad about it. He says, well, he says, I know this guy. He's a Petro-Canada marketer, and it's in Slave Lake, Alberta. So you might get the same kind of adrenaline rush as you'd get in the military without getting blown up. He said, should we give him a call? And that was your father, and called him. And then next thing you know, like a few weeks later, I was on the plane, and I was working for him, and then it just kind of went on. And
So, hmm so had you met my dad Ingo before then, or was that your
no,
first time meeting when you moved out here?
first time I met him was at his office with my dad, and they just kind of obviously talked. My dad at that point wasn't retired, so they were just talking about Suncor stuff and Petrocan stuff, and I'm just kind of looking around.
Yeah.
Hey, what's gonna happen? And next thing you know, I just started working, and back then, things were busier than they are now, and I just loved it.
Right.
I just loved the work,
Yeah.
and loved the people, and obviously loved your dad, and
Yeah.
and the city too. So in 2008, there was an oil price collapse, and then I kind of thought,
Mhm.
maybe this is my chance to go back and do right, and take another shot at
Mhm.
school, and that didn't go so well, and then I came back, and I've been here since. So I've been back
Yeah.
10 years now. So
So just to take a step back there, what was your first impressions of Ingo? I know you said the first day him and your dad were just kind of chit chatting away, but once you got to meet him and maybe got to work for him a little bit, what was your first impressions? Because I know he can be quite the, especially when he takes an interest in you like he did. I know I got to feel that my whole life, and I think once he got to know you after the first few months, he kind of took you under his wing a little bit too in that, and being. I know he cannot be the easiest guy to be under. He expects a lot, but I was curious what you thought of him first coming in.
yeah, so if we do in the timeline, I was a bit of a, I wouldn't say trouble, but a high energy
You like to have a
young
little fun.
adult, and I kind of wanted, even my new boss, and I kind of wanted to bullshit him and say, whatever you need, I'll do. And he just looked straight at me and very seriously says, yeah, that's exactly how it's gonna go. You'll, you'll do exactly what you're told. And maybe I expected a more kind of soft answer of, yeah, I know, whatever you need. But it was more like, no, you're going to work, and you're going to do what you're told, and you're going to be on time, and
Yeah.
and then after that, it just came natural. He just really knew, what buttons to push, and I was a very reactive young man, and
Mhm.
with the shitty French temper, and and with other people in my life, it just would always turn into a bit of a gong show. But with your father, he was always able to get results because he knew which button to push and how far to push. But also,
Yeah.
he's just got that natural um, aura that you want to do good by him, and you want to make him proud, and because when you do, it's a good feeling. He's a top notch guy, and as a boss, he was top notch. And then later on, when I I took over. He had this company of Boss Pressure, and then with the help of my dad
Mm-hmm.
and him, I took it over, and then he became
Mm-hmm.
more of a mentor, and then he was awesome that way too. So,
Yeah.
but for me, it was I was very lucky to meet him, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm not sure what else to say. It's been a good ride.
Yeah, no, and from just from an outsider's perspective of watching all that, it was very interesting for me to be able to see that, because what you just mentioned of what he said to you right off the bat of, no, you're going to do exactly what you're told, you're going to show up on him.
Yeah,
What he was doing is exactly what we just talked about earlier. He was also showing you how to succeed in Slave Lake, because that's exactly what we just said 5 minutes ago for what brings everyone together in an environment like Slave Lake. When things
yeah,
are cold and work needs to be done, everyone pitches in, and that's what bonds everyone together. He was really showing you the path that might have seemed, a little rough on you right off the start. You might have accepted a little softer entry, but really what he was showing you was exactly how to succeed where you need to be, right? He was showing you the way. And what you said about being quite the reactive young gentleman coming over, I got to see that. I got to see a lot of that French temper when we first came, and I was a young kid too, and I
yeah.
liked to push your buttons, maybe not in as productive ways Dingo did. I just like to piss you off, and I got to see it. But it's been amazing to watch you grow and take on the business of Boss Pressure, and you're still a bit reactive from time to time, but
Oh
not
yeah,
nearly as much. You've definitely found yourself a lot more, and grown a lot as a person. It's been quite spectacular for me to watch. So
thanks.
then my next question, if we're going right into Boss Pressure, would be, how old were you when you entered into that venture?
Audio cut out a bit, but I assume the question is how old was I when I took over Boss?
Yes, sir.
Okay, 22. I was 22 years old.
22 years old.
Yeah,
And at that point, you had you'd worked in Slave Lake for a couple years. You had gone back, tried your hand at school again. I think you were working in Montreal, and then you got the opportunity at 22 years old to come into Slave Lake, Alberta, that world that you had kind of been thrown in head first, and sank or swim, and you swam. But this was a big step up, and I know for myself at 23 years old, hopping in the position I'm currently in,
yeah.
it was terrifying. I was scared as all hell. So I just kind of was wondering, how did that feel to you? Were you scared? Were you excited? What kind
Uh,
of feelings were you going through?
well, I was excited. I think it's we should take advantage of the platform to tell the story. So when I went back to Montreal, I tried to finish my college, and it wasn't working out. And I what I really missed was
Mm-hmm.
making money. So I was working at these call centers, and I had a girlfriend at the time. So on my I would have been a supper break. I called her just to see, you want to check in,
Mm-hmm.
obviously. And she said, your friend Ingo called. He says he wants you to call him back. Um, so I called him back, and we're just kind of chit chatting. And at that time, there had been some personnel changes in Boss, and he was kind of feeling me out, see if I wanted to come back. And he kind of used the word. He says, "Well, he says your window of opportunity is closing in." He says, "You're 22 and you're working in the call center." He says you should come back. He says, "Just say yes." And I was like, and in the meantime, I got my boss there, because when you're working in the call center, like you got to get those buttons moving. Like you got to make calls. She's like, "Simon,
Right.
get moving, get moving." And I'm just telling her, "Wait, I'm just finishing this call with my friend." And finally I said, "Okay."
Mm-hmm.
I said, "I'm in." I said, "I'm coming back." And then this girl is like, "Simon, get dialing, get on the phone." And I just looked at her and I said, "I'm out." I I got up and I just put my headset down and I said, "I'm going back to Alberta." And she was just stunned. And
Holy man.
yeah, and then just remember walking home, being super excited because the city life didn't really work out for me. And Montreal's an amazing city, but I definitely didn't
Mm-hmm.
really fit in it. And yeah, just being super pumped. And I think it was literally like a week later, I was on a plane, and then learning how to work the trucks, and getting some training from Barry and the other guys that were there, and then after that, just kind of talked to my dad and talked to your dad and Barry, and we were able to make a deal. And I was very, very, very lucky to get the help. But it just happened like that. Like it was just one of those life
Yeah.
changing things where one minute you're sitting in a call center, and next thing you know, you're on a plane back to back to Slave Lake, and I just remember being so excited, and for me that was the best thing. And I even though since 2014 we've been kind of, I'm not going to say under siege, but it's been tough. Like, it's been really really tough with the commodity
Hmm.
prices and how our government views our industry and how the rest of the country sees our industry. It's just been really
Hmm.
tough, but I still believe deep inside that was the I go back to that phone call and I said that was the best thing that ever happened to me. That was one of my life changing moments. So I'm glad
Yeah.
I get to share that with you.
Yeah, and look at how far, it's taken you and what you've done with that business. You've really, taken it the next mile, really dove in. Not only do you learn the trucks, you learn the system, learn the industry and the areas and where you could kind of expand off to next, and you've really grown into your own. I just I know for myself in this position, it was a very similar thing. We got a call, I think it was June, about this opportunity in Grand Prairie, and in a month I booked we were supposed to take over September 15th, so I'd booked a month long trip. All of August I was going to be gone.
Yeah,
I went to GP, found a house, looked at a bunch of houses, closed on a house, left to Europe. They moved up the date to September 1st, so I landed, I think, the 29th of August from my month long Europe trip before this big job, and had to pack up my whole life, move to GP, and move in. The first was a Friday, so my dad and Barry both said, "Yeah, no, we'll be here we'll be here Friday for you. We'll get you set up in the house on the weekend, and then all next week, and then the week after, if you need us, we'll be here." And I think about Saturday night to say, "Yeah, I think we're going to pull the pin tomorrow morning and let just go in Monday morning and figure it out on your own." The first time with an actual role of that size, and I just thought how terrifying it was at the time, and how much it was, sink or swim, figure these things out, problem solve, problem solve, problem solve. And I found it changed me as a person to realize that all these scary things, if you just keep putting one foot in front of the other, keep grinding, you get better at it, and just don't get scared, and just not make any solutions going forward. If you just keep trying to just break it down, maybe you can't solve everything at once, but you can just find one little piece of it that you can figure out, and then move on to the next one, break it down into smaller sections, put goals in place, and you can make it happen. I found that changed my entire life, of that, of from being terrified of what to go in. It's like, oh no, I've gotten through this. And then, like you say, it feels like you're besieged by all these things, downturns in the oil prices,
yeah,
things go wrong at work. I felt personally they've been through a million other things I can name, but going through those, for a while, it was really getting me down, and I found it was, tough. Like, holy man, why is it just, can we ever catch a break here? But then at one point, you know, that made a really big realization of, I'm a young person in this role, and I think, I don't know if you'll feel any of this too. I feel like you might be in a young person in that role. Was um, at 23 years old, I'm doing these kind of jobs that I probably wouldn't do. I'm extremely lucky here. I need to learn from this as much as I can. It doesn't matter if it all isn't perfect, right? It'd be ridiculous to try and expect that out of myself. But if I treat all of this as a learning lesson, then regardless how this turns out down the road, if the oil and gas industry catered tomorrow and I had to go do something, I've learned so much from this role. I'm so happy with my problem solving skills, and just be able to find anything. I'm so confident right now that I could walk into any other role in other businesses and just walk right in and be confident to start solving problems day one, and really walk forward. And I don't think I'll ever lose that going forward my whole life. And I think that was a big, huge impetus behind starting this podcast, because it's a huge undertaking. It's really scary. But if you just treat it like work, I just did a job of someone much older for a long time, with all these crazy things, accidents, rollovers, purchases of other companies, trying to roll those in, right? All these things, multiple downturns of the oil, right? Oil going to negative for the first time. If I can make it through all of these things, something I'm super passionate about a podcast, if I just keep that same mentality of, keep grinding, just solve problems as they come up, I know I can do it. And I wondered if you ever went through something like that. But I found for myself, it having that realization is just treating everything as I'm getting better, and the results aren't what's mattered at the end of the day. It's about just getting better yourself, and then regardless which way you go, and you could quit tomorrow and hop into something else, but you've concentrated so much at getting better that now you've leveled up so much, it doesn't matter where you are, you're going to kick ass wherever you go, right?
yeah. And if I can add to that, you bring up the sink or swim thing. It's very true, but at the end of the day, like, we have access to some really amazing people that are literally just a
Oh
phone call,
yeah.
away, and and that was the other
Mhm.
thing too. I know we're bringing up Ingo lots here, but it's a person that's got over 100 employees or 4 or 5 different businesses, and it's pretty rare that you call and
Mhm.
it goes to voicemail. Like, uh, you got some
Yeah.
got some
Yeah.
people that are available, and when you bring up these other challenges and stuff that we've gone through, um, at the end of the day, if you look at it from a global perspective, to be young and doing something that yeah, it's tough, but it's fun, and I enjoy it. I love my employees. I love my business.
Hmm.
I love my customers. Like, although it's tough, like we kind of won the lottery, and we need to be really thankful about that. Because
Yes.
if you look at the rest of the world, man, like they don't have nearly the opportunities that we had, and we need to take a moment.
Right.
And we're not saying that to brag or to, it's just to take a moment to say, okay,
Hmm.
yeah, sure, this is tough, but I'm still in the game, and I love the game.
Yeah.
There's other people that
Hmm.
go every day into jobs they dislike, with bosses that are disrespectful, or coworkers that are abusive,
Hmm.
and they can't just quit. We get to pick who we work with because we get to pick our employees, and
Right.
just for an extent, we can even pick our customers. If a customer is too difficult, or you can't make him happy, you have the freedom of saying, "Hey, we
Hmm.
can afford your business." But the long and the short is, it's been tough. Anybody that's in any sorts of business will go through tough times. But I was thinking
Right.
the other day, like at the end of the day, we're still in the game, and we need to be thankful, and we just need to take,
Hmm.
step back and say, okay, well, so I've gone through the 2014, 15, 16 crisis, and we've gone through other stuff, and COVID is just
Hmm.
another thing that we're going to get through. And but yeah, kind of
Yeah.
just want to
I
put that.
think I think thankfulness is I think thankfulness is a huge piece, Simon. I love that. I try to every day when I do my meditation, I try after my meditation to do 5 really deep breaths and be thankful for 5 things on each breath. And I find that is something that goes a long way. I think a couple years ago, I don't know, it was definitely a podcast I did, but I can't remember what it was. But just talking about all those things you can be thankful for in comparison to that, but also going back even further when we talk, like you said, we've been bringing Ingo up, but I'm always super thankful for my parents and just what they did for me growing up, and getting to watch that. I found that was huge going to business school and watching kids that had never worked before, and just being so thankful for having somebody like Ingo and like Barry, like Jason Hancock, that I got to watch from a business perspective from the time I'm 6 years old to the time I entered university. I'd watched how they deal with people, how they deal with their employees, how they keep that relationship of keeping it stern, but also keeping flexibility to be understanding and compassionate for people and doing the right thing when the right thing is necessary, and putting their foot down when putting their foot down is necessary. And I found that is so much of uh, what work is those kind of things over top of just the soft skills they try and teach you in university. And that was why I was so disenfranchised when I went to university, and what they were trying to teach us was like, oh yeah, this stuff is important, but if you're not teaching what's really important about business and about being in a workplace and how you work with people. That is what I found was so lacking from all the coursework. And you could see these people that were really excelling in maybe the finance or the accounting, but their interpersonal skills when trying to work with people were absolutely terrible. And you could tell that they were coming from different places of not working. And I think that is definitely, they might think that they're thankful that they've had this place where they haven't had to work growing up, and they're very thankful for that. But I'm super thankful that I was, made to work from a young age, because you learn all those things as you go, and thankful that I had huge role models in my life that I could base this off. So I have that strong base to build on top of. I think if you have that base of understanding of the interpersonal and working with people, that's when you can start to learn these skills. If you try and learn, what's a good example? So say there's a negotiations class, and they're trying to teach you all these negotiation tactics. That they can teach you that may or may not work. If you don't have a strong base of how to communicate with people and how to interact and how to realize different people's personalities and use kid gloves with some people, be firmer with others, all those little negotiation tactics go out the window, because really you don't have a basis to learn off of. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying? And I found that was so much lacking, and I'm so thankful that I had that going in, by having these people to look at and learn from. That I was set up to succeed in that sense, where I think a lot of people think that they're gonna. I think coming out of school, they're gonna have a rude awakening for a lot of that stuff if they try and talk to people how they do without realizing that.
but still, like university, they put programs together for hundreds or thousands of students, and your
Right.
situation growing up was completely different from someone, let's say, who came from Syria, or someone who came from a family of teachers. So those courses can be relevant. I'm sure
Hmm.
there's lots of courses that you're like,
Hmm.
not sure about that one, where there was other stuff you probably just geeked out and
Yeah.
enriched yourself with. So you got to take the good and
But
the good.
yeah, and but what I found, Simon, was that lots of the classes and the professors that were really good, were coming out of the workforce and just filling in for a semester, and they actually were working, and those were the ones that actually knew the things and how they're going. We had a couple profs come in because I think 2 or 3 university professors from the U of A were going to work on the carbon tax program for the NDP. When they got in, they had taken a bunch of professors in the natural resources business field for that council. So they had to fill them in with actual people in the industry to come teach these courses for a couple semesters. And they were the best teachers we had because they were out in the real world. They knew what really worked. And I found the experience we got from them compared to some of these professors that had taught they went to university, they got their business, got their master's, never really went to work, and then went back to teach. And you can really see it. You can feel the difference between someone that's been in the real world and done some of these actual things, or is just talking about it. It was super obvious, almost from the jump, of which courses were which. And some courses, it didn't matter, right? If you're teaching Excel, it might not matter if you've been in the real world or not. And those classes were good regardless. But stuff like negotiations or even economics, that is a lot of math. But when you really want to talk about the theorems behind them and how they work and what the motivating factors are, if you're just trying to read from the textbook, you're not getting the full force of what those things are trying to say. And you need a little bit more nuance to them to be able to explain them to people accurately. And I found that was a huge deal. And I wonder how much of the university system could be changed by just implementing a little bit of a balance between both. You can have lots of teachers, and maybe this is just something that is a business problem. Maybe it's just in the business school, but I would venture a guess, if I had to put my savings on it, that this is a problem in a couple other faculties too, where they never actually get out in the field and do it right. It might be something like biology, where they think one way because they're never actually out in the field, and they just sit in the classroom, and you're not actually out in the world seeing these things, seeing the results, seeing how things actually work. I think we could benefit from a more balance of that and understanding that going forward.
Those, not that I'm, not that I would know, because I never went to university, but I think they probably always worked at making their programs better. They can probably use a set of fresh eyes there once in a while, because sometimes you talk to young men that come out of university and think they know, you know, everything about business, and you're like, man, you're in for a rude awakening, man. Like, it's not all that, but I think for a lot of them, it's a part of the process. And then, at least they get to build constructive thinking when they go to university, and then when they get to the real world, then they get to see what stick and what didn't in university. But at the end of the day, I have a lot of respect for people that go through those 4 years. I wish I would have done it. It's kind of a bit of a chip on my shoulder, but yeah.
Yeah. But really all that is, and I think that is, what I talked about with work, and the lesson I learned about just putting one foot in the other in the grind. And if you keep at it and you keep solving problems, you do it. I think that's a lot of what university is doing. It's less about, it's proving that you can get through the grind of it, right? It's showing that piece of paper at the end of the day, just showing that you can put your mind to something and persevere and solve some problems, really, more so than the actual amount of knowledge you're coming out with it. I'd be way more, if somebody comes to me and tells me I have the degree and that's the only piece of information I have to work on, whatever that degree is in, it doesn't tell me how much knowledge they have in that field necessarily. What it tells me is that they have at least this certain base level of gumption and hard work, and I guess a little bit of intelligence. I think it's more hard work, but a bit of intelligence to see if they can do that. And it just shows a level. I think past that, it's so variable how much you actually get out of university. And it's also very much on the person, how much you want to put into university. Because like I said, I learned way more running that dodgeball league in the residence than I did than many other courses, right? And that was just something that kind of randomly my course took me on. I didn't even want to do that job. Somebody kind of pushed me into it, and I ran with it from there. But it just goes to show. But that could be, student government. That could be just meeting new people, getting you into a different friend group, right? There's so many things that you can get out of it as well that I think people don't have a really good understanding these days, because they just push everybody. Just the predominant message for the last 2 decades has been graduate high school, get a university degree, get a job. That's what everybody's been told. And I think everyone just accepts that and thinks, has a very different idea because of what's been kind of forced down everyone's throat of what a university degree is. And I think we have to kind of take a step back and reanalyze what it is and what we're getting out of them and who needs them even, right? Because I think there's a lot of times where we're pushing things towards them when it's completely unnecessary, and there'd be another path that would, whether it's a trade or, just taking something on themselves, realizing that they don't need other people to to be successful. If they're passionate about something, they can make a job out of it. I think that's one of the biggest things. And on this podcast, I've been trying to ask people, and maybe I'll shove it in here because I have been trying to ask it in the last two podcasts and I haven't been able to get to it. But if you could do anything, Simon, and get paid for it, what would you do? Do you like what is your super passion? Like would you play guitar for a living? Would you open a little country bar and just make money? If you knew it was going to be successful, for the money would come and you could just do anything that you would enjoy, just to be happy every day, what would you do?
This is gonna sound maybe unoriginal, but uh,
No.
I probably do the same thing I'm doing right now. I just love my employees so much. Um,
Yeah.
we're running I would say top, but we're running really good equipment. Most customers are friends of mine. Um, so
Hmm.
it's maybe it's sad, but I just don't see myself doing anything else at the time because I still feel there's things I need to accomplish here, and there's
Hmm.
unresolved business here. If not, I'm a huge foodie, so I probably like a little diner that you can maybe plug with some
Nice.
charitable work, where you kind of hand in food for.
Yeah. I always thought you'd make a good chef.
Yeah, well, maybe not a chef, but comfort food for sure. So I love
A little
cooking.
carrot soup restaurant. I
Carrot.
know you do. That's what I'm saying.
You love the carrot soup, don't you? But
Hey, that's my favorite thing you make, my friend.
yeah, that's funny. I
So kind of where I was going with that is I just think that so many people these days, we're so focused as a society onto making money and just finding that job that's going to make you money. And I think we're getting more and more away of people, asking what their dreams are. Not I think if someone talks about their dreams, it's almost instinct just to laugh at them or kind of, push them towards something more reasonable. And I think every year forward is another year of everybody has that opportunity. It's with the internet and where we are as a society, you can do anything, right? If you're passionate about flowers, you can make that a job. If you're passionate about, painting houses, you can make it anybody has that. And now the resources are there for all these more people to chase their dreams. And we're pushing people to not even look at them, right? We're laughing at people when they are. And I think we need to get that back into society more of asking those questions of if you could do anything and just figure out how to make money at it, right? Once people realize that it's just a grind. If you stick with it and you're passionate and for a long time, you'll find success. The money will come
if
from it.
you're if you're
We need to
passionate
start
about
pushing people back into that.
if you're passionate about selfies and costumes, you can be a prime minister too if you want. Um,
There you go. Yeah, exactly. If that doesn't show you can do anything you want in the world, then I don't know what will.
prime
Oh
minister,
boy.
if you left the limelight in the photo ops, you can even run a country if you want.
Hmm.
But that's a good.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we should. Everybody should take the time to, because sometimes we get stuck in the wheel and maybe a little bit lost.
Hmm.
But personally, I'm very lucky because for me it's not a struggle to get out of bed and to go to
Hmm.
work or to get a call in the middle of the night
Hmm.
or to problem solve. But there's other things you can do because sometimes we feel like there's a bit of a void you need to fill. And for example, I started doing something that's kind of similar to a Big Brother program with this young Aboriginal kid who unfortunately
Right.
lost his dad in December and comes from uh, poverty, which is always the kind of common denominator for some issue.
Hmm.
And and that's been it's free work, but it's extremely rewarding, and I encourage more people to to volunteer or to try to put some of your free time towards the greater good
Hmm.
because what you get out of it. And I was super hesitant at first. It's
Right.
it's a local person in Slave Lake that said that it would be a good fit. And at first I was like, oh man, like that sounds like a lot of work, but it's been extremely rewarding. So your question
That's
was,
awesome.
if we could do anything. Yeah. So the answer to that is I would still do what I do.
Mhm.
I take it to the level where I want it to do, but I try to find time to do some good because it can
Yeah.
create a snowball effect and then just kind of paves the way for
Hmm.
other people to do the same. Because I was
Yeah.
extremely fortunate with whether it was help from my dad, or the mentorship of your dad. I was
Hmm.
extremely lucky. I like if you compare my odds to the rest of the world, and you include Asia, Africa, South America in it, like, man, I won the lottery, and
Hmm.
so did you, and we, like
Yeah.
I said it earlier, but we need to always be extremely thankful for that.
Yeah, and I think that's beautiful, Simon, to hear somebody when you ask that question. If the perfect answer is exactly what I'm doing right now, that's the goal, right? That's nothing to be ashamed of. If you're doing what you love and you're enjoying it, that's great. What I think I struggled with a long time was I wanted to start this podcast, I wanted to do it, but I was so thankful, Simon, for everything I had. I was so fucking lucky. I had great parents that raised me uh, to be
Amazing.
who I am today. I was so thankful for what they did. I had all this opportunity. I got to go to university, which so many people don't get to do. I got to get all these. I got to travel the world. I got to do all these things, and I was so thankful to be in the position I was in. That how could I felt like it was a slap in the face to all these other people if I was to throw it, but I'm not throwing it away. That was always my big hang up of I thought I had a really big passion for something else like this, or you know. Something where I could get my voice out a little bit more, but I didn't want to pursue it because I thought that was a slap in the face and I was being unthankful to those that were doing it. But then I had to realize that what your passion, what those people raise you to, they just want you to be happy, right?
That's
And if doing this as well, if you're lucky enough that you can keep that job that's making you happy, because I do love my job and I love it every day. I
yeah.
just found that there was some other piece missing and I can do both. So why not do both? And that's, I think, what big realization I had. But I think it is very important to be thankful, but I think also being true to yourself and allowing some space for that to at least ask yourself what it is and find that dream. Maybe it isn't what you want to chase, or maybe you're not confident enough in it that it is something that you want to drop everything for, but you can just try it out. Take those first few steps and just at least give it a see. I hate the thought of having there's for sure if you asked all 7 billion people on this earth that same question about what would you do if money wasn't a factor, I think it'd be very few and far between people like yourself, Simon, that would answer exactly what I'm doing. I think the people that are happy, I think happiness more and more is a arduous task to get to, and I think there's lots of factors to that. I think social media is one of those big ones. I've definitely talked to a lot of factors. I think the media is huge. I think there's all these really 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 strong forces at work trying to prevent people from being happy. And I think that's where I think one of the biggest steps to combat that is just to start that question of asking, what is your dream? If you could do this, why not? And I hope everybody would answer exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm perfectly happy, but I just don't think that's the case. And I think
No, because
it's a noble goal to at least walk towards that.
out of 7 billion people, Nick, there's probably, I don't know, I'm not going to throw out crazy numbers, but there's probably 3 billion people that would say, I just want to feed my family. I just want the roof to
Exactly.
leak so we can have a dry floor.
Hmm.
Like, and
Yeah,
that's,
there's probably 3 million people that say I don't know what I would do if money didn't matter, because all I want is for money not to matter. I'd do anything, right?
yeah,
Not what would I do if
exactly.
money didn't matter. I would do anything for money not to matter, right? It's a very different mindset. And I think you have to be, and I think that's where you have to be thankful. And that's where you have to be understanding of that is the actual opposite, right? The opposite isn't I could be happy at one job or unhappy at another. It's I could be either way or have nothing at all, right? And I think that's where the real thankfulness comes from. And I think it's hard because you have things like social media that is changing what your perspectives are. It's hard to keep that in the forefront of your mind of what you have compared to other people, when all you're being bombarded with is all these other high levels of where people are and the
Yeah,
status that they're showing, and that's what you're comparing yourself to.
it's so
Which
awesome.
really, like you say, if you wanted to compare yourself to the true median of what the world is, it'd be a very different story than what you're being sold to, right? And I think that is a huge source of discontentment with people these days. And I think that's why that is an important goal, is to push people towards chasing their dreams. And maybe I'm just in a little bit of a dream chasing mood at the moment over the last couple of weeks, because I have been. I finally got this podcast released, and it's
Feels like, well, I don't want to throw, was it what, 6 weeks you told me you were going to do this? Maybe 2 months? And,
yeah. So
boom, you got six
yeah. So
episodes.
but it took
That's cool, man.
yeah, and that was it. And it was different levels of accountability too, because at first I thought, okay, well, this is something I'm really passionate about, I'm going to do it. So I thought I'll order all the equipment, and then that's it's set. I have to do it now, right? There shouldn't be any more real big barriers once I do that. So then the equipment come in. Okay, now I have to learn how to do this, right? And it was probably 10 times harder than I thought. It was going to be way more to it, way more to learn. And then I thought, okay, I just got to get one recorded. Once I have one in the books, it won't be scary anymore. I'll know how to do it and it'll just be something fun again, right? I have been so nervous. Maybe other than today, I feel like we were just kind of into. I did my meditation for it. This is the first one I wasn't so super nervous for because I care so much about it. It hasn't got any easier in terms of getting to the next one, but I think that's showing that it's important, right? The fact that it keeps you scared like that. And I just thought it was so funny that the accountability at the start of what I thought was going to be the levels of, oh, if I just get this done, then it won't be that scary. It's going to be all easy from here. And then, oh no, it's just got to be this one next thing. Right. And now it's, oh, I got to just get a couple more in-person interviews, and
moving
it's always
forward,
going to be that.
you're gonna have a bunch of curveballs coming your way too. But why don't
For
you kind
sure.
of run me down like the prep work you need to do to start an interview? Because there's no way you just log into a computer and say I'm going to talk to this guy for 3 hours and so kind of run me.
No, definitely not.
How does it work?
So when I first decided that this is what I wanted to do, I built a spreadsheet. I put on it a big list of ideas of topics that I wanted to do. I had a big list of people I wanted to interview. I had a big list. Then from there, once I had certain people that I thought would be good, I put them into a different part of the spreadsheet where I had questions that I want to ask, and just kind of started building it up before I even had told anybody I was going to do it. I have like a list of maybe 30 people with just some basic questions. If it's somebody like yourself that I know for a while, I kind of just sit down with it before on my spreadsheet, figure out what kind of things I would like to ask, what I think maybe you'd be okay with talking about, because I think lots of the time so far, there's been questions I want to ask, but I didn't think would be very appropriate at this time, or maybe I just don't have the skills as an interviewer to tiptoe through them maybe just yet. And I think I will get there, but I think that's the other side of this is it's this constant battle of I want them all to be perfect and I want them all to be great, but also I just want to have practice. So I want to get these on. I want to have guys like you, Simon, on where I don't need to do 10 hours of research. I just can get some content down and get some practice in this seat, right?
Feels more.
So I guess it depends. But here, let me get a good example. So I kind of got my first potential guest. It's not set in stone yet, of a really big time guest that I don't know before, that it was kind of a big swing to take at. And I don't know them as well. It's not somebody I'm familiar with going into it. So I probably did, 6 hours of research yesterday. I watched a movie. I read a bunch of blogs. I did all this research because I want it to be good. I want it to be accurate. And then from there, I went and built questions. And his question page is probably the half a Google Doc of just questions that I have, because I am passionate about when I get those. And those are the kind of interviews I want to get with these, higher level people that are in these positions. I mean, right at the start, I'm going to have to, kind of take advantage of my friends and force them to come sit down like I am with you, just to get the practice time in. But
you don't want to fuck that one up, like
yeah, exactly.
So that's good. You get to practice with me, and you had your sister and her fiance, and and then your friend was on there, and you were on there. I learned something from every single episode. Your sister talked about women's health, and me and my partner were expecting a baby, so that was interesting. And then we had Liam, who was in the COVID unit in the heart of the battle, yet he was the most jolly and happy-go-lucky guy. So that was super cool too. It was how can I say it? Kind of took the edge off of the whole negativity around COVID. And then your friend you had
a little bit
working in and then your friend working in Saudi Arabia. Man, that was another cool one. So let's just hope that this one is as good or better. Very competitive.
No, it will be. And I think you really nailed an important piece of it, because I don't think I've talked about why I wanted to start it, but not some of the goals that I wanted to get out of it, because I think everyone that starts a podcast too, and I think that's what everyone's kind of, it seems like lots of the questions that are kind of what I want out of it, I haven't been super clear on, but I think it's because it's different at the start, because I think everyone's first instinct would be money, and that's what you're going for. But I've said from the start, this isn't about money. I'm, like we said, super thankful I have a really good job, and I don't have to.
I'm not getting paid.
What's
for this?
that?
I'm not getting paid for this.
No, well, you are, but don't tell anybody else. Yeah, right. But I think what you just said of hearing that from you, of I learned something on everyone. That's what I want to get out of it, right? If a couple people learn something from it, that's awesome. I love nothing more. I think you'll know more than most people how much I take pride in my recommendations and being able for people to trust me what I recommend and say, hey, I checked out the thing you said and I loved it. I get no more pleasure than that. When I found Parasite and you watched it the same day I recommended it, I was bouncing around the house just because someone took my recommendation and liked it. That's something I've always had. I felt like nobody ever listened. I felt like I always had a lot to say. Nobody ever listened to me. So now when people Exactly, right? So I think as a podcast, it's an extension of that. But then past that, I think also at the start, I mean, maybe eventually I'd want to make money with this, but I want to do some good with it, right? Where I'm
Yeah,
passionate about. I want to start, doing some free promotions, and maybe if someone hears this, they'll reach out to me. I want to,
yeah,
if there's something I really care about, some local businesses around here, just to get it out, maybe spread some good, maybe some charities or not for profits, or just areas that I'm really passionate about. That's kind of what I want to move this podcast towards at the start, as a means, like you said, of just giving back a little bit. I'm getting so much out of this myself. I would love to use it to give back a little bit, and I
like
think
you
I've got a
said,
few ideas already in the.
at the core of it, there's long form dialogue, which is extremely important nowadays.
Mhm,
And you said, the nuanced stuff. We can get into that later, but um, just to sit down and to talk, and no advertisement breaks. It's
mhm,
just a nice form of conversation. I've been listening to tons of podcasts. Obviously Joe Rogan being one of them.
mhm,
I was listening to one called The Daily from the New York Times, but then eventually it just
mhm,
got to be about COVID and Trump and Trump and COVID and COVID and Trump, and
mhm.
it just kind of, at that point I just disconnected.
Yeah.
Uh, but when you said you were gonna do it, I was like, wow, that's taken on a big task. And literally a few weeks later, you had an episode out and another one, and I'm just like I'm a big fan already, and not that I didn't believe you'd do good at it, but usually at the beginning you're like, okay, let's get by, a couple.
Mhm.
It's like a band, like the first the first singles they
Yeah.
release. Okay, we see the potential, but
Yeah.
you're not going to hit top 40 right
Mhm.
away. But not not to toot your own
Mhm.
horn, but it's been really good so far. So I'm super glad to be a part of it.
That's awesome, and that's what I was going and expecting, because I listen to a lot of podcasts too, and they all talk about the first 15 episodes are going to be trash. Like you just got to get through them, slog through them, and I think and that's what I was going and expecting, because that's what everyone said. But I've had a lot of really positive reinforcement from them, and that goes a long way. It's some days when you just did 6 hours of editing on an audio podcast and you lose it all and it got deleted and you're pissed
Yeah,
off. That goes on thing, but then one person says, "Hey, I really enjoyed that," or "Oh, I took that recommendation." It makes it all worth it, and I'm just loving it so far. But like I said, if there's a couple ways I can figure out, and I have a few ideas where I can start giving back in places I care about in terms of free advertising and that, I think
yeah.
that's going to go a long way.
Just
But
back to sorry to
so
interrupt.
then,
Just back to the process.
mhm,
How much editing goes into an episode like this?
it depends. So when I did the first in-person one with Courtney, the audio, I think it was something with me setting it up wrong. The audio was terrible. So
Wasn't that
when
bad?
she would talk, um, well, that's because I did hours and hours and hours of editing.
Oh,
I had
okay.
to go in and watch all the waveforms, and every time one of us wasn't saying actual words, I had to edit it out because there was so much feedback between the mics that it would cause an echo, and it sounded terrible. And I couldn't edit it out. There's some times where we're both talking at the same time. I had to leave it in, but I just had to do so much, and I was so worried because that was the first one. So I thought, am I going to have to do 8 to 10 hours of editing for each one of these? But now that I've started doing them online, there's a lot less of that. And I mean, there's other issues that come in with this online. Sometimes it cuts out, sometimes, and I've been fighting that. But it's just new goals. And like I said, with work, how I kind of reframed it is I'm learning. That's how I framed all this. So I'm not getting frustrated when I have to do editing, or if something doesn't go right or it's not perfect. I'm just treating it as I'm learning. I'm getting better. This is the first couple podcasts. I'm gonna get better, and eventually, hopefully, I can grow it to the point where I have some help with it too. Because that's where you look at all these successful podcasts. They have producers and that, and I just figured, you know what? I don't need that at this point. I need to grow it on my own. I need to learn this stuff because I wouldn't feel comfortable even handing it off to someone anyways. Because that's not how I like to understand the whole process. So
Yeah.
it's definitely a lot of work behind. It's way more work than I thought it was gonna be, but I'm way more. I thought I was really passionate before, but as soon as I got into it, it felt so natural, and I love what I'm doing already with it.
It
That
doesn't feel like
oh,
work.
okay, this no, exactly. It doesn't feel like
Yeah,
work, and that's what I was waiting for.
great.
Because with my other work, it doesn't feel like work a lot of the times, but there's times that it is. But
Oh
when
yeah.
you're really moving, there's big things going on, and you're solving problems, and you're getting things done, and it's awesome. It feels like it's the best feeling in the world. But it was very inconsistent. Where this is, there's not really any part of it that I don't enjoy. I love it, start to finish, right? And that's just so nice to have something else. Um, to keep that fill your cup. They always talk about that. There's lots of things in the world that fill your cup and that empty your cup, and if
Hmm.
you're always giving, it's a lot. And I found that was one of the biggest pieces of the role that was sung. It was just, you know I found in that role, everybody that comes to you, if they have a problem in their role of the business, it is the end of the world a lot of the time, and you're having 8 to 10 people come to you in a day with their world falling down and expecting you to fix it. And I think that's a lot of giving. And I'm sure you know that too. When you're the one that all the issues come to, or if issues come to someone else, if they can't solve them, they then come to you. There's days that a
You
lot of
can't
them
pass
come to you,
the
and it's a
buck.
lot of giving, right?
Yeah, sometimes there's no
You
one to pass
can't.
the bucket to. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
personally I like that. Even
Me too.
as
Yeah.
a as a younger kid, either playing sports or whatever, I was always one to give me the ball.
Hmm.
That's or
Yeah.
uh, or when my back's against the wall, that's kind of when I do my best work. So I'm comfortable in
Hmm.
that,
Hmm.
and I enjoy it. I think it's
Definitely, and I agree, and I agree with you, Simon. I think those days where I described, I think those are my favorite days, right? But it's hard to do them a lot in a row, and I think eventually, you need a good reset to fill you back up eventually, right? And I found that over time, especially with all the COVID stuff that came in, just kind of the last one, it was a really big, because I've been riding the waves of it, right? It always comes and goes. There's always issues that are coming up, and there's higher times and lower times. But I think that was one of the bigger lower times. There wasn't a lot coming in, right? With COVID, you couldn't go over to a buddy's house. You couldn't go see your parents. You couldn't do anything. There was.
And then there's a big thing like uh, in our world and everybody else's world, not just in business. I don't care who you
Hmm.
are. There's something called mental health, and your brain can only take so much negativity,
Hmm.
or you need outlets.
Yeah.
And for me, that was it was tough to find healthy outlets to because your brain is like a big muscle. So if
Hmm.
you're overworking it, eventually it just kind of shuts down or it starts doing weird things,
Hmm.
brings you to weird places. And when you're in positions like myself, it's kind of like when the plane crashes. They say, put your mask on first so you can kind of
Yeah.
help. And you got to go about life kind of a certain
Hmm.
way. If you don't
Yeah.
take care of yourself, there's no way you're going to take care of others. There's just no way
Yeah.
you can do it
And that.
temporarily. Long term, it's impossible.
Mhm. And as much as I've learned so much over this 3-year journey of this position, I think even bigger, almost bigger than that, is my personal journey of my own mental health and what I know I need to run every day. I know now this is something that I've recently added, but I know I need to meditate every day. I know I need these certain things throughout my day to make sure I'm there. But I found that even at that point, I was with all those things that I was doing for my own mental health, it was still not enough, and I needed a new outlet. And that's when I came up with this, and it's been really helpful for it. Right, that was kind
Yeah,
of the impetus of it all. Was I needed something for me that was going to be, it's 100%. No, I don't have to answer to anybody. It's all my ideas, whatever I want. I don't have to do it if I don't want to. It's all coming. I found that has been a huge thing for mental health. And I think there's a lot of people that, you know, might be something else, but they can find it might be, going for nature walks. It could be anything, but I think it's a very important thing for people to realize they need to make sure they're taking care of themselves, putting their mask on first,
yeah,
filling up their cup and making sure they have enough to give, because it's especially when times get tough, it's very easy to be so scared for everybody else and,
yeah,
want to make sure everyone else is okay. And I struggle with that a lot too. And I'm very empathic with that. If someone with one of my friends has an issue, I'm right there to
yeah.
take it on, but you have to make sure you're walking that balance of taking care of yourself too.
Yeah, and I think
Very important.
in a for example, in myself a male dominant workplace, it's not issues you're too comfortable talking about, but it's just something that everybody goes through. Sometimes your brain just
Mhm.
shuts down and makes you do wacky things, and the easiest thing
Yeah.
is to find the the easier outlets or the shittier outlets, whether it's stress eating or anything like that. And
Yeah. Whiskey.
whiskey, absolutely. Uh, um,
I think there's a lot of guys in Slave Lake where
I,
whiskey is a big
yeah,
piece of that, and I think that's something where I think we know a lot of people too that
well,
maybe unhealthy. Sometimes they turn to things that they.
I was one. Well, I'm. Uh, let's respect the process here. Let's be transparent. I was a person who had horrible outlets to deal with stress. Because sometimes you just feel alone, or sometimes you just feel sorry for yourself, and that's a part of being a young adult. Like
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
find for men 19 to 30, they're just tough ages. You wanna
Hmm.
you want to fit in. You don't want to go to BP's and say, "I had a tough week. Sorry, guys, I'm going to go in my basement, turn my phone off, and do my mantra for 15 minutes." It's more like, No,
Yeah.
let's have four double Caesars and then a couple Jack and Coke, and then let's pretend that we all feel much better, and we don't. And then on the way home, you grab
Yeah.
McDonald's, and then next thing you know, you feel like you feel worse. But I think that's something our society could definitely benefit from. And you see it with Bell, what Bell
Hmm.
does for mental health. I think it's
Hmm.
improving. It's okay to talk about it because I don't care who you are. We all go through ups and downs. Personally, my ups are like that. I'm up, and then just like that,
Yeah.
right down. Even earlier we were having a hard time setting up
Hmm.
the audio for this podcast. Here we go. It's going to be a disaster. This is going to be shitty. No one's going to like it. And
Yeah.
then I told you, I said, let's take 2 minutes. We got audio. Let's relax. And then we just talked about our day. And then organically, it just
Yeah.
came back to a conversation. But yeah, I'm not sure where we were going with this, but I think we got the mental
Hmm.
health thing. At least we brought it up and trying to take the stigma out of it.
Yeah. And I think that's something that I'm very similar to you, Simon, in that where my anger is definitely something I work on all the time, and it's definitely a huge piece of who I am that I have to keep it under control. And I found that that meditation has helped me have that extra level of understanding where my anger is coming from, and I found that has helped immensely over the last, I don't know when I started meditating, maybe 2 months ago now, and I found that when I do react, I have a way easier time of not just giving in to the anger and feeling it still, but understanding where it's coming from and being able to rationalize it a little bit and combine that with a little bit of breathing. I found I've definitely gotten a lot better with my anger. Definitely, it's not perfect. It's not gone, but I find I've found a lot healthier ways to deal with it. And I just find that if I've meditated that day, it's just that split second between something bad happening and you punching something or snapping or yelling, of just that understanding. You might still yell, you might still punch something, but you take that second of understanding of kind of having to realize where it's coming from and recognize it as a thought. And I found that has been just a huge boon to my own mental health
Are
moving
you
forward.
are you comfortable talking about what your meditation exercises look like?
Yeah, I think I might have even talked about it on the last podcast that isn't out with Fraser. But yeah, so it started. I just was kind of, like you say, I was just looking for something to kind of help. And what I found was all these successful people that I listened to all the time, they kept coming up, all these different guests on Joe Rogan, all these scientists I listened to, they all talked about this transcendental meditation, right? And I kept hearing that TM and TM, transcendental meditation. What is trans? So I looked it up one weekend and I, tried it out and I found some really good results from it. I just watched a little YouTube video. There's seminars you can go on. You're supposed to, talk to someone. They're supposed to give you your own mantra. I just made my own up. It's just about all it is just trying not to think of any thoughts. Just empty your brain, right? It's a certain state that you can bring in. They've done a bunch of tests where they've, hooked up whatever kind of sensors to your
Sure.
brain, watching it. And you can take it into a certain, Zen state that helps your brain recuperate, helps regrow connection between the left and right hemisphere. This might be a little bit of bro science here. I don't know how accurate all this is, but
Yeah, yeah,
helps grow the connection between the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere of your brains, helps regrow connection between your frontal cortex and kind of the back, more lizard brain. And stuff. And it's really good. It's fine. I think it was Jerry Seinfeld said I would never have been able to do any of those TV shows if I couldn't have my 15-minute TM break in the day to come back refreshed. It's like, it's like going for a 2-hour nap and coming back, but it's 15 minutes and you're back. And I found, oh, well, that sounds awesome. I would love to have that some of my days. If I could have a 15-minute reset, I thought that would be a invaluable skill to, what I'm doing right now. But more than anything, what I'm finding now, Simon, is that when I'm doing it, my best ideas are coming from when I'm sitting there trying to have no thoughts. That's when these really good ideas come in. Ideas for podcast guests, for different questions for upcoming guests, for work. So, sometimes I know you will have the same thing. There's a work problem that isn't an easy fix. It's people that a bad relationship between two people that can't really be fixed. How these really good ideas of, oh, if I just did this, bring them in, talk to shape it this way. It's
Hmm.
been coming. I've just found that these wicked ideas are popping up when I'm doing it, which is not really what I was getting into meditation for. But hey, it's a happy accident, which is making me more excited about doing it every day, making sure I've done it and I'm doing it before every podcast and before and I found I'm really getting a lot of good things out of it, and just something I
That's
stumbled upon and just
that's really cool. I kind of saw something similar online of a scan. They scan a brain after, let's say, a stressful day,
right.
and that they send that guy out on a walk, and then they scan his brain again, and like it goes from red to like kind of a greenish,
Hmm.
more clarity. and that's kind of what I've been doing. I used to I used to run with your dad, and then we did the half marathon, and then I said, well, that's done, so I just kind of quit. But I
Yeah.
take my walks really religiously, and see where I live. I live in Whitewater, South Shore Drive, and I kind of drive all the way to the end of it, which is where your friend Kobe Lucan grew up. And usually
Hmm.
from my house to his house, it's just this person, that situation, or or my partner kind of bugging me, or family
Hmm.
matter, and then when I turn around,
Whatever it is.
yeah, or whatever it is, and then that's the first half, and then by the second half, you've already kind of naturally sorted things in your head. Okay, yeah, well, maybe that wasn't that big of a deal, or
Hmm.
maybe this person, didn't mean it that way, or this problem actually can be fixed quite more easily. So it's funny you say you meditate before. Uh, every cast, I went for a walk before I came on the show. I just went to make sure I clear my head, and
Yeah.
I'm fortunate enough that I have my daughter Alice here with me, and she joined, and
Hmm.
we got to talk about all sorts of different things, and it was just empowering. And then
Hmm.
I was ready to sit down because I'm not gonna lie, I was very nervous to come on the show because you have to respect the process
Yeah.
of not doing what our politicians are doing, which is going on TV shows and trying to present this amazing
Hmm.
side of their personality, and they're just perfect. And I find podcasts, you want to kind of go into the darker areas of your soul and share them, so that someone
Hmm.
out there in this thing called the internet, which is worldwide, will say, hey, I'm not the
Hmm.
only one that feels like that. And so
Yeah.
anyway, that's kind of
And I have so many ways I want to go there, and I don't want to forget. So make me finish up the meditation talk, but just going off of what you were saying, about that honesty, and what that brings out. I think it's not even going in the dark place. It's just, being honest, for a couple hours. I think that's what shows through. I had another point there, but I lost it. Anyways, okay, I'll go back into my meditation. So that's what I was going to say. Of when you say you take your walks, that is a form of meditation. Is walks, and that's what I found once I got into it and I started looking at it a couple different ways. It's all the same stuff. It's all just trying to get you to calm your brain down and just take a breath and be in the moment. That's all it is, right? So then that transcendental meditation is, repeating a mantra over and over again. But then when I did a little more digging, really it's any way you feel comfortable. So sometimes I do a mantra, sometimes I just concentrate on my breathing, sometimes I can just get myself to a point where I'm not concentrating on anything. It's just, that nothingness that I think what you're going for, but you're always going for the same thing. It's more of a feeling than anything. It's similar to sleep. There's so many different ways that it doesn't matter how you get to it. It's more about just doing it and being consistent with it, because it's a skill. And
yeah.
that's the other part of it. Was hearing that before I went into it was really good. They said you're going to suck at it at the start. You're going to be, having thoughts come into your head and having to start over like every 10 seconds. And that's what it was. You're starting over. But now that you do it, after a couple weeks, I could maybe get a couple minutes where I'd be really in that zone. Then I'd fall out of it. And then there's times where you don't realize it and you've been thinking thoughts for like 3 minutes and you go, oh shit, I've been, and you don't get mad at yourself. You just reset. And because that's the whole point of it. It's a constant resetting to nothing, getting distracted, resetting. That's all it is. And whether you do that on a walk, whether you do that,
Yeah.
sitting down somewhere on a yoga pillow like I do, it's all different. Or sometimes I'll just do it sitting in my truck if it's a, time, you're really busy at work and you need 10 minutes. And that's the nice thing, you can do it 5 minutes, you can do it 10 minutes. You just shut everything down, put your phone on do not disturb, and you set a 10-minute timer. You just do some breaths and concentrate, and you come out and you feel way better. You've come up with a few answers to those nagging things that were bugging you that morning, and you get right into it.
And you come back,
Yeah.
and then and sometimes there's you have arguments, whether it's with your partners or your employees and your clients,
Hmm.
and so many times as you're walking, or for example as you're doing your meditation, it's hard to get in that zone. And usually you come back from the walk, and for example I look at my partner, or I'll shoot a text to a customer and say, or an employee and say, hey, sorry. But prior to the walk, I was like,
Yeah.
no, I am not sorry. I'm right. I'm
Yeah. Exactly.
100% right.
Exactly.
You're so wrong. And then
Hmm.
you kind of you realize, okay, well, yeah, maybe there was a different angle to it that I did see. Stepping out of situations is something that for me
Hmm.
takes a lot of work, and it's been a journey. Like we talked earlier, uh,
Yeah.
when I was young, like um, whether it was hormones, or just how you're wired to be, you're right, and you're right, and they're all
Mm-hmm.
wrong, and that is the worst way
Mm-hmm.
to build strong relationships, because they're like, okay, this guy's just in that case, so,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah.
Yeah, and that goes to so many other things. Of if you go through the world thinking you're right all the time, you're never going to learn. If you go through the world thinking that you could always be wrong, you're always willing to listen to all sides. And I think that's a big issue we have right now. Is there's so many giant swaths of people that we're being told just to not even listen to if they don't fall into your side, whichever side that is. It's on both sides. If you're on one side, you're told not to listen to this huge swath of 30% of the country that's on the other side. You're not even supposed to listen to them at all. How are we supposed to come up with solutions? The way we're going to come up with solutions is, two brains is better than one, and 330 billion or million brains is better than, uh, whatever half of that 165 million or whatever in the States. But they're told to not even listen to the other half because there's nothing to be heard from them. They're bad people. They're whatever you want to label them, and it's on both sides. So now we're not talking. I think that is just a microcosm of that, with one person, of going through the world not listening as much as you could, and trying your best. And I know it's a hard thing to ask, and it's definitely a constant struggle. You have to grind it every day, but to try and go through the world with openness and be able to receive from everybody and learn from everybody, even the people you cannot stand, you can learn something from. You can learn something from anybody, right? And that is huge.
I think that's
Yeah. So then my
yeah, no, go ahead. I was just gonna say, um, that's a scary thing. Like, for example, in the States, how there's 340 million people, and if you're voting
mhm,
a certain way, you listen to one channel, and if you're and I think that is
yeah.
one of the scariest thing out there, man. Because I read an article recently that came out in Maclean's, and it said, for example, 70% of all Republicans believe that since Trump was in power, Canadian American relationships improved, or
Yeah.
65% of Republican see Russia as a strong ally. And it's just, when you start looking at that, it's
Mhm.
scary. It's scary that man,
Right.
what
But
is,
but there's but you have to have a few understandings with that. So those, Simon. So now it is scary, and I agree. But what is their goal? What do they want to do? They want you to be scared. If you're scared, you click on the stuff, you go to them. So you have to keep that in mind, right? That's a grain of salt you have to take almost with everything these days. Everybody wants you to be scared, so you have to have that understanding. It doesn't mean they're wrong, but you have to at least have that in your bank of inputs for what they're trying to come out. You have to have that knowledge, or you're not doing your job as a citizen. With what we've known, they've proved it to us at this point that they really have an interest in making people scared. And then, how many times have you answered a poll in your life? One of those kind of polls. When have they ever asked you?
I did one during the federal election. So
Right. But
that's
I
the
but
only.
I think for the most part, Simon, it's a poll of people willing to do polls. And I think at a long time, whoever's it's coming from, they ask the people they want to, and they're going to get the result they want. I think polls these days, it's so hard to find one that is actually true. I think those two factors, the one that, yeah, it is scary because that's what they're going for. And they're going to ask that poll of the people that are going to answer it in the way that they can make it as scary as possible for you with whatever goal they have behind. And if the poll didn't come out with the answers they wanted, they wouldn't have run it anyway.
Yeah,
Right. And I think that's what we got to, and I think a big piece of that, and I just talked about it on the podcast that drops, I think tomorrow. Uh, but I think it's not as much as we think. He was the Bill who was on. I think he was saying, it's 40% of people on one side, 40% on this side that are just going to vote no matter what. I think that's untrue. I think more and more that's skewing to the edges, and it's just the craziest. Maybe it's only 15% on each side, and there's maybe a little bit of a in between where they're not totally radicalized, but they will still vote for it on the other side. But I think more and more that middle ground is growing. That middle is growing, and there's going to be things changing. I think it might be too late for the next election there, but I think when you look at 2024, there's going to be some things coming up, and even 2020, I think we'll see. Well, I guess Kanye just entered the race yesterday, so we'll see where that goes. Right? Like,
it's yay. It's just yay now.
oh, sorry, yay, whatever,
Yeah.
yay. I don't know,
Uh,
right? That's just craziness. But
You have three options on your ballot. You have Donald Trump, who we shouldn't even get into that, and
yeah,
Joe Biden. If you've listened to any of his speeches or any stuff, he's absolutely senile. And then
he
we
has
got Ye.
dementia.
Oh, can
Yeah,
we, and then we got Ye. So, man, those guys are in trouble. That's all I can say.
yeah, I know, and but that's the thing. But if Ye can come out and be an unseen force coming into the show at this point, that doesn't mean another one can't. And I think that's where I keep my hopes up for. I think there might be another option coming down the pipe. Hopefully, I mean that's
Well,
all you can hope for at that point, right?
yeah, I think I spend too much time paying attention to American politics, and I barely know what's going on in my own province. But um,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
just hope that out of 330 million people, there's someone that out there that can that put it on the
Hmm.
right track. Not that I got on the Trump bashing train when he got in. I thought, give him a chance, and everybody's like, oh my God, the nuclear codes and this and that. He's going to turn the world into a gong show. But hey, people did really good on the stock market with him, and I think it's really the COVID thing that shown that maybe he lacked a bit of the competence to run a country. But how many presidents are going to go through a pandemic like that? So we should get
Yeah,
too deep
it's
into
just his
the.
ego that gets him in the way. If he could check that, I think his competence level is fine. I think it's just his ego impedes his competence all the time, right? He just can't check it at the door. And if he could, I think he could do a good job. But he's clearly shown if he can't do it after the first 4 years, that he's never going to be able to do it. And I think that's the big issue. And I think that's what people were hoping. But I think that was a silly hope to put your to hang your hat on. Was is he going to check his ego at the door once he gets in? And a lot of things people thought that would happen. He never did, right? And that he is capable, but it's marred by this disgusting ego he has that doesn't allow his capability to shine through.
It's not so much what he does or what he did; it's how he says things or
Mhm.
the class level. So and people get really hung up on that. But anyways, I don't want to get
Yeah,
too deep into that.
yeah. No, I've
I don't
talked.
I
Yeah.
don't think he was as bad as people might seem to think in the beginning. I think he tackled a lot of issues that Americans needed to tackle, like immigration or trade deficits with China, and he took that head on. And I think he tried with North Korea. It didn't end up that good. But
Mhm.
other than the COVID thing, it's just the dumb shit he says. But in reality, I don't think he was that bad. But I don't live there. Like he's not
Yeah.
my commander in chief. Like I'm not American, so
Yeah, and I think people did a disservice. The people that don't like him did a disservice to their own cause of wanting him out by not at least acknowledging some of the things he did do well. And I think that's what is kind of sinking their own ship a lot of the time, is because they're so unable to announce that anything he does is good, is that everything's bad. That just shows to people that at the very least you're being just slightly dishonest, because there's no way everyone can do everything bad. Just
yeah.
like if you said everyone, if you were saying everything, it's just like in Canada where they say everything Trudeau does is good, right? It's the same thing. There's no way anybody, even if he probably, and I think we have the same issue, and I think that helps prop him up. Is no one will ever give him any props if he does anything, at least around here, right? Even if he does do something good,
Nothing.
and
Yeah. No, and
and
that's sad.
I,
It should be like that way. But I remember like watching CNN, and it was when Trump. It was the first president to enter the DMZ zone in North Korea, and they still found a way to make it a negative thing, like that it was a photo op, and that he was there. Just at the end of the day, he was there, and attempting peace. Whether it worked or not, you're dealing with some kind of crazy dictator over there. So anything can happen at any time. And I was just like, okay, this is a historical event, and I'm watching CNN, and they're just shitting all over him. And I was like, I think we're in trouble, because I thought symbolically that was a step towards peace, and one of the two major networks decided that they were gonna shit on him for that, and you got to be able to give credit where credit is due, and I'll be the first one to do it, and I'll do it on your podcast. Trudeau, if it wasn't for the wage subsidy thing, we would be in major trouble. Personally, in my business,
right.
I didn't vote for him. I likely won't vote for him at the next
Mhm.
election. There's a lot of things I think he does that. Well, he works for the people that elected him. So Maritimes and the GTA and
Mhm.
Montreal and whatnot. But I mean, you got to give credit where credit is due. Some of the wage subsidy program he did for small business, it helped us big time. So
Definitely, and I think there's definitely some good things that happen right throughout that whole COVID thing, where I think on both sides, you see in the States and Canada, where there was really things that were really well handled, things that were really poorly handled, but it was just spun. It was all politicized. It
Yeah.
should have never been a political issue. It was a crisis. It was almost, it should have been on the same, like when people go to war, it's
Yep.
now you against everyone else. Everyone comes together. This should have been the same thing, uh, same tactics that we needed to take to stick together, but it never was, and that's what caused so much chaos, so much,
No
so much
kidding.
hate, so much fear is coming from that, because now you have now even science is impacted. Now you're seeing that because everyone was so anti-Trump, that there was hydrochloroquine studies that were getting fudged because they didn't want it to be right, because they didn't want him to be. But now at that point, now you're hurting innocent lives for this, right? I agree with what you're trying to do, but if that's your tack, if you're willing to put bodies on the floor yourself to make it happen, that's not the right way to do it. Now we've gone too far. But
Or
like I said, I've gone in this I've talked this politic talk on almost everyone, but I think there's a couple other areas. We can get back to it if you want, but I have some
sure.
questions more I want to ask you and some things I
Yeah,
want to talk about you. So,
yeah, buddy.
how old were you when you had? Maybe I'll try and lead you into this story, because I think you might be a better place to take it. And then when I enter it, I can pick up my side of it. But you had a big change in your life. I was in first year university. I think you got a call from back home in Montreal, and I think it was a pretty life changing one.
Oh, we're going there. Yeah, that's you're talking about Alice.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
that's tough to talk about because there's just so many
Of
dimensions,
course it is.
to it. So
Yeah.
well,
So just maybe start with how old were you at that point?
I was 25. So I was 25. I was sitting at BP's, the very first booth when you walk in into the lounge, and I was having a beer with
Yeah.
my buddy Sam, who I brought up earlier. And it's like, you know, that magical time of first week of December, and everybody's getting excited for Christmas and all that stuff. So we're just kind of having a beer and shooting the shit. And then back then I had Facebook, which I turned my back on a few years ago, happily so. So I get this friend request from this girl, and I tell Sam, I said, oh my god, I said, I hooked up with that girl back home. You know how locker room talk or boy talk or whatever. And like 3 minutes later, I get this private message, and it was life changing. The message went in the lines of on August 25th, 2008, a child was born, and then she's your daughter, and it's hard to explain what happened exactly at that time, but Sam he explains it pretty good. I just got up and I was kind of walking around BP's, um, like I seen it, like I seen a ghost, and I was just kind of walking around and because I was able to access her Facebook profile, and when I saw a picture of the kid, there was
Yeah.
there was no denying. Like I mean, that
Uh-huh.
was my daughter. She looks like she's got hair, but she looks like that. She's gorgeous and she's perfect.
Identical. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
she
did.
just looked exactly like. And I remember, I'm sure I wasn't your first call, but I was probably in the first couple days there. You called me, and I was
First five. I remember. I know exactly who the first calls were. Um, Yeah, it man, it was talked about a life changing a moment, and then it just I'm not sure where you want to go with this. I'll answer every question you want, but you're 25 years old. You're sitting at a bar with a buddy, and you get a Facebook message from this chick you
mhm,
had a relationship with, let's say, 5 years ago in a handful of months, and
mhm,
you're a dad. First thing I asked, so I said, well, I said, let's not go back and forth with Facebook here. So I called her. My first question was, is she healthy? And she said she's extremely healthy and
yeah,
she's extremely happy kid. So at that point, I was like, still not clear in my head, but I was like, okay, I have a beautiful daughter that looks just like me, and who's healthy. We can make this work, But
right, yeah,
then it took on a roller coaster ride, and
mhm.
um,
I remember,
what was
so maybe I'll
difficult
just let you
was,
collect your thoughts a little. I'll let you collect your thoughts a little bit, and I'll just tell Kimmy my side of what I got to see from it. So I was sitting at university in one of the buildings, and I got a text from you, and you said, "I have a kid." And I said, "Bullshit," because me and you, our relationship, we fuck with each other all the
fair
time.
enough.
And I
Yeah,
just said, "Bullshit, I don't believe you." And then the next text you sent me
the picture.
was a picture of Alice, and I stopped. I was walking through sub, and I stopped, and you just have a moment of shock. And I think in myself at that time, I don't know, I was 18, 19 maybe. And I think every guy has had that thought, has, every guy has had that fear of getting that text or that call, right? That's just part of I think part of being a guy, that is kind of one of those things.
Yeah,
And I just had all of my fears of what I would do in that situation bubbled up, and I was so scared for you. And I remember just being so impressed. I called you right away, and you were already, I mean, you're 25. That was like, this happened to me last year. I can't imagine I would handle it as well as you did. And you said, "You know what? No, I have a responsibility. I'm going to do everything right. I'm going to be there for her. I'm going to do whatever she needs. I know I just found out, but that's my daughter." And
yeah,
I was just blown away, because to me, I mean, me and you were still, I was 19, you're 25. We're still kids at this point. Like, what are we going to do? But just to hear that come out of you, I was so impressed. And just every step of the way to watch you once you did go meet her, and just the role you took. You were a father from that day you texted me. You were a father, right? I never realized it, but you were. And it was something amazing to see, because I was still watching you grow, like we had said a couple times, working on yourself, growing as a person, finding your own issues and what you don't like about yourself, and working on those, to
busy
have
as
something
fuck
so
at
big
work.
get thrown in.
Like work was
Yeah.
busy as shit then too, right? So you're trying to.
Yeah. Work was crazy. And yeah. So then what was the, how far from that time, when did you get to meet Alice at that point?
I met her 3 weeks later. I think our first meet was December 18th. Um, Geez, I wish I knew the date. I'm horrible at it, but I knew it
Yeah.
was right.
Close enough.
Yeah, so I show up, and she lived in Stansted, which is right on the Vermont border. Her mom worked there as a nurse for this very high end boarding school, and uh, and I show
Right.
up, and her mom is kind of working, and Alice is just outside making a snowman, and uh, and then yeah. Um, I go up and I introduce myself, and the first thing she says, "You don't have hair." I said, "No, I don't." Yeah,
Oh,
you have no hair. and
oh, that is great. That is so funny. How did I never hear that story before? Oh my God, that kills me.
kids will tell the truth. Um, Anyways,
Yeah.
and it's like it's it's kind of like how Forrest Gump when he meets his little guy, but yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
Not that I have the same intellect as Forrest, but I kind of remember
Yeah.
feeling like you're just looking at her, and well, first you're amazed because she's perfect, and she
Yeah.
talks, and she's kind of funny,
And
and
she's beautiful, and she's funny, and she's smart. She's got so much of you in her. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And then and then so then we did the I did my first Christmas with her. I remember waking up early and being there for Christmas, and then and you want to spend time with the mom too. You don't want to rock the boat too much, not the
Hmm.
uh, and then what happened there is I think her mom and I, we kind of we moved a little too fast. So I remember going down for my birthday in March, and she was like, "Yeah, you're gonna go stay with your dad for like 3 4 days," and that didn't go so well. She just kids. Not that I'm a child psychologist, but the kids at that age, they they like their comfort zone. They really do,
Yeah, for sure.
and uh, and I think we should have taken a step back and be a bit more patient. But it's also kind of how my
Hmm.
personality is. I just wanted to be the guy. I wanted, and in my head, I was going to
Yeah.
be dad, and she was gonna just be crazy about me, and it was
Yeah.
gonna be easy because that's kind of how I always. And then it got kind of difficult because she was out of her comfort zone, and the one getting blamed for
Mm-hmm.
getting her out of her comfort zone was myself. So it's
Yeah.
difficult because you talk to people like yourself or or anybody you talk to, they're like, oh my god, this is amazing. And trust me, Nick, it is amazing. It is amazing to be a dad. But
Yeah.
through that process, there was a shitload of rejection, and
For
and
sure.
when you're a type A like me, you don't want to be rejected. Like, you want to be the guy. Like,
No.
you want to be the man. So like like I try to go down every, like, in the beginning, every 2 months, and then you pick her up, and it's she's doing amazing for a couple hours, and next thing you know, crisis, she wants mom, and it's completely natural because that is their comfort zone.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
um
And I can't imagine also on top of all those feelings you're feeling on your own too is I can't imagine just putting myself in your shoes of missing some of those years not by any choice of your own and being forced into the situation that you're coming in. You're trying to navigate with all these things you're talking about. It was all kind of forced on you, and not there was other ways that could have gone about it, and you didn't have options to any of those. You didn't have access to any of those options, and I imagine trying to balance all of those emotions while trying to keep a straight face for Alice and keep everything
yeah, well, you like to
concentrated on her.
be brutally honest, like, at first you're thrilled, you're happy, and as you're getting rejection and and a boatload of pain, because that's what rejection causes. It causes a lot of pain. Um, then you kind of
Yeah.
start resenting. You resent the mom, and I still do. I dislike her very much, and I still think she's a good mom, and but I think I have the right
Yeah.
to say, yes, you're a good mom, but let's call a spade a spade. You robbed me of 4.5 years, and her
Yeah.
mom is more of a strong-headed person, where never really gave me the the space to, or didn't really allow me to be
Mhm.
in. But also, there's a distance factor that we can't ignore. I'm 4,400 kilometers away,
Mhm.
so I mean, you got to deal with that.
Of
And then
course.
I just remember her. Well, you should call more often. Or you try to talk to a 5-year-old on the phone. It is tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. So,
Mhm.
and my uncle, not that he went through something similar, but he went through a separation, and his ex-wife had the daughter and moved away. And I remember him telling me, he said, Just be patient. Just be patient. The older they get, the easier it's gonna get." And man, like, I went and picked Alice up on the 25th, and it's been her best visit yet. She's going
Mhm.
on 12 years old now. You can actually have talks with them. They're comfortable in
Yeah.
their skin. They're discovering their voice. You can use dialogue to make them understand things. Which
Mhm.
when they're because when they're young, like, I always tried the dialogue approach, but like, you just kind of have to go with. You just got to be more of a leader. But I didn't want her to dislike me, so you're trying to talk to her and, hey, this is why I'd want you
Yeah.
this or that, and they're just kind of like, what children crave at that age is they crave a leader say, hey, you're not going to do this, you're going to do that. But for me, I was like, man, if I do
Mhm.
that, then we'll go back to, okay, well, bring me back to mom, I don't want to be with you, which
Mhm.
brings back
Right.
the rejection piece, and stuff. And that's something that that I'm okay with now. But there were some years where you kind of suffered in silence because it was you don't want to tell the world that your daughter is causing you a lot of pain and hurt, because she
Right.
doesn't. It's not her fault. She's a child, but the
It's
reality is
just the
it's
circumstances.
just exactly, it's the circumstances, and you don't want to feel
Mhm.
selfish. But I just remember being like, man, like, this is this is hard. Like, what
It
am I?
is.
And
And just to and no preparation either. You don't have 9 months of prep going
yeah,
into it to get your mind out of what you're about to walk into. You're constantly learning yourself and building yourself back up as you're going through, as you're
yeah,
getting torn back down. You're constantly going through it. It's I can't imagine just what you went through with that. That's a
yeah. And even, like, for
amazing,
example,
really.
and not to be too hard on her mom. I should leave that out.
Yeah.
But for example, I take her and bring it to I make a special trip down to Montreal and or Fredericksburg and spend time with her. And she was
Hmm.
more the type. She's like, anything happens, you have to call me. When I was more like,
Hmm.
hey, you should kind of tell her anything happens, you're with dad. It's gonna be okay, right? Like
Yeah.
dad should.
Right.
So as soon as we run into any sorts of, and I mean, you're talking about kids, like afternoon, they can get tired or crabby or they didn't sleep good the night before. And it was like automatically, mom, like give me my mom. So
Yeah.
that's why on top of being robbed of the first 4.5 years, I thought I never was given. I think her mom had a chance to make it right, and she didn't. But at least now Alice is at a certain age where it's becoming much easier. Like this visit we're having right now is
Yeah.
the best we've had. Also, because before when she'd come here, I would plan a million things. So we'd be going to the Rockies and we'd
Right.
be going to Calgary and stuff. So we were always in a vehicle. And this time I said, F that. I said, we're going to stay at home and
Yeah.
we're going to eat together. We'll have breakfast, lunch, supper together. You're going to help us with dinner. You're going to help us, and just to bring it back to a simple place. And I think the
Mhm.
results are much better. I'm already just thinking about the fact that she's leaving next Friday. Just brings tears to my eyes because it's just been such a good visit. So
Yeah.
my attitude now is to look ahead and whatever happened before, let's just call that
Hmm.
a big whatever, because we can't let that we can't let that impact the future of our relationship. And because she
Yeah. You
needs.
can do a lot of great things from this point on.
Exactly. And now also, and that's one thing I'm very thankful for. Not thankful for COVID for a whole lot of things, to be honest with you, but she was home. So she wasn't stuck in the routine of getting up, going to school, homework, supper, uh,
Hmm.
puppy time, and then nighttime. She was home and she had access. She'd have her iPad time for an hour or two, and we would talk every day. And I think that's kind of how we rebuilt the relationship.
Nice.
And then we told her she was going to be a big sister, and she got super excited about that.
Yeah.
And we've been keeping her um, involved in the process. When we found out the sex, she was the first one to know. And when she's here, she's been picking out little outfits for him, and she's excited. So it's just, let's just look ahead. But but um,
Yeah.
but it's just been one of those things where people are like, "Oh, you're just so lucky." Yes, trust me, I'm extremely lucky to have a beautiful, healthy, and insanely smart and funny kid. But it came with a lot of hurt, and it left a lot of damage. Because you're trying to set boundaries too with your family and your mom or
Hmm.
whatever, and you're watching that from afar in Slave Lake. Whether you're on back then I was on social media and I'm like, you know, what is she doing at my house? But you're like, you got to bring yourself to a place where it's like, hey, it's about Alice seeing her
Hmm.
grandparents, not this person you very much dislike being in the home. But to manage all these different emotions, it's difficult, and naturally, I'm
Hmm.
not one to um, be 100% in control of. I'm very much emotion driven. So, but
Hmm.
um, uh, uh, I think we're making progress, and I think we're moving in the right direction. And I'm going to try to put my focus on that, and to just be like we talked about being thankful earlier. I'm just thankful that I have a healthy daughter who's just
Hmm.
and she's going to be an amazing big sister. Anybody who knows her knows she's smart, she's funny, she's caring, she's generous,
Yeah.
and the thing I like the most is
Hmm.
when she cracks up laughing out of control. And that laugh,
Yeah. Yeah.
I could if I can have that song on iTunes, I would put it on repeat for hours, man. That's what I like the most about her.
Yeah.
She
And
laughs.
and that and that's what I wanted to say about the whole process too. I know for you going through that and all the hurt that you had to feel and the emotions that you had to process kind of in what you got thrown into really without any preparation, like I said. But from the outside perspective, it sure didn't seem that way. It really seemed like you were from the very start in a place where you would just wanted whatever was best for Alice. The love you showed right off the hop, it was very evident, and the change immediately in who you were. I know I talked about you growing, but I think that was probably the biggest impetus behind a giant change in who you are, and for the better that we've got to watch. I know me and Ingo talk about this a lot, but just what it did for you leveled you up as a person to a point where you had way more understanding, way more compassion, way more. It really brought you to the next level, and I think that was amazing to watch. And I know when you're going through it, all you feel is the emotions, and it feels like that's what's projecting outwards too. But from the outside looking in, it looked like it was just all positives for us. And I think that's where people say, when people say you're so lucky and all that, and it's inside, you say, well, you don't know about this too.
Oh
But I
my
think
God.
that is, I think you
Inside.
have to have I think you have to have a balance of realizing what it does look like to other people, and just how proud we are of you too. And I know that when people tell you how proud we are, and what we saw out of that, it's easy to just go back to the bad parts. But I think you do have to keep keep those in mind of what it did for you, and how amazing the process has been, right? Because and then it leads right into this. Now you're having another baby, and
Yeah.
it's an amazing process, and now you get to. It's going to be so cool for me to experience through you, just the difference between, I'm sure, the last however many years since you got that phone call, all you've been wondering about is those first couple of years that you missed out, and what those would be like, and how much you're enjoying, and how much you love this kid. And that's what makes, I bet you're right at the start, the loss of those 4.5 years didn't sting like they did once you get to know her. And that laugh you talk about, I'm sure, I'd not to bring up painful stuff, but
Mhm.
the more you love that kid, the more that pain gets felt of what you lost. But I just can't imagine how excited I would be if I was in that position to now get a not a redo, but another chance at that. And I just think that's so beautiful to be able to. I think most people with their going through that for the first time, they're just so scared, and they're so just not ready for what it is, and they don't have that appreciation for what they missed. I think you'll have a really special look at it going into it, being excited for it, and knowing that you'd missed out on what it's going to get to already, but also now get to experience everything at the same time for the first time. If
But
that makes sense.
we were talking, my girlfriend Catherine and I, and of course we see our friends, and I've seen some of my family members with the young babies, and it's hard because they, lack of sleep, and it's not like the baby says, "Hey, I'm crying because I'm teething. Don't worry about it." It's gonna be, you're just got a crying baby. Uh,
Yeah.
you're not getting much rest. It's easy to, but for me, it feels like yesterday Alice was 4.5, and now she's going to be 12. Like, we're talking
Mhm.
almost 8 years, and it went by like that. Like, it goes by
Yeah.
so fast. So, and that's what
Mhm.
I told Catherine. I said, I don't care about the diaper stage because it'll go by like so quick,
Mhm.
and we'll go from having a baby that can barely move to baby that crawls. And yeah, he's gonna shit and piss and cry and stuff. But next thing you know, he'll say mama or papa, or
Mhm.
and then boom, and then next thing you know, he'll be walking and running and doing these ugly ass drawing, but we'll still think they're beautiful. And it just goes so fast,
Yeah.
like just the things that Alice does now. I'm like, wow, like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we weren't even close to that. For
Mhm.
example, on our walk today, we're just, she kind of brings up Alberta and the oil and gas industry in Canada, and literally took 5 minutes to explain to her that if you compare yourself to China, whether it's their human rights policies, or how they're stuck on coal still, and how they pollute, that we're really not the problem, and we shouldn't be ashamed of our energy sector. I was able to have that
Mhm.
talk, and it took 5 minutes, and she got it, and that would have been impossible 4 years ago. She would have been whatever a
Yeah.
teacher or somebody that she likes would have told her, that would have been it. So, um, or another example, I picked her up at the airport, and she's like, do you mind if I put my music on? And I'm just like, okay. And she's Foxy Lady by Jimi Hendrix. And then next thing you know, there's another song from Nirvana. And I'm like, okay, yeah, we're gonna get along just fine, and we're finding these things to
Yeah.
bond on, and yeah. So I mean,
Oh, that's
it's a
awesome.
roller coaster. It's a roller coaster of different emotions. You try as much as you can to leave the anger out of it. It's difficult when your
Hmm.
counterpart doesn't really play by a good set of rules. But at the end of the day, you control what you can
Right.
control. And if and I'm not sure if we can say this on the podcast, but I reached out to your mom. I needed help, and she said, just give love, and
Yeah.
just you control that. And she says she told me uh, she loves you, every kid loves their parent. So if you give that love back,
Hmm.
then it's just a patient game, and you're gonna slowly,
Yeah.
just like we kind of connected on the music, and now we can have constructive conversation, and
Hmm.
we can play soccer, and or go fishing. She
Yeah.
loves that, and you
It
find
takes a
these
long,
things.
yeah, it takes a
Yeah, no,
long
go
time
ahead.
to pay back, but I think you do realize that eventually that is what's most important. And it takes until their adult years for them to realize that, because when you're going through it as a kid, you feel like love should just be accepted, right? That is what you should get, but you don't realize how powerful it is, because you take it for granted as a kid, and you just draw uh arrows to all these little things that they probably could have done different. Like with my parents, they loved me so much, and there's a couple of things that I would have changed about how they raised me and stuff, and we talk about it now, but I could feel it the whole time of how much they love me, and it went a long time, and I've thanked them for that. As an adult at a certain age, you get a realization for of just holy shit, all they did for you. And it's so nice to be able to go back now and realize that, and give them an actual good, long form, heartfelt thank you for all those things they did. And I think she's right on the money there. Is if you can give that real genuine love the whole time, it comes back. All those little things, once it may take 20 years till she's at a point where she realizes it, but that all comes back. It pays dividends down the road, right? That's the real important piece. And I think everyone gets so scared over being everything perfect. I think there's a book called The Good Enough Mom. It's about parenthood, and every mom is so scared about being perfect and having everything be perfect. But it's just, you try the best, you try and make everything as perfect as you can, but you got to be good enough. As long as you give 100% to them in the form of love, all the other stuff comes out in the wash, and you're never going to do everything perfect. So if you try and put that as your goal, you're just going to run yourself into the ground. You just have to do good enough and make sure you top the rest up with that love, and that's what really comes out in
I
the end.
remember going down, and I was like, okay, what kind of person would she connect with? And that was probably the worst thing I could have done, like, so you'd go and
Yeah.
you spoil the shit out of her, and then you just buy stuff,
Hmm.
and and finally this time I was like, okay, I think she's old enough. I'm just gonna show her who dad is, and we're gonna stay at home. And
Yeah.
I
And
took
that's
her,
what she wants.
yeah, and I took her trucking, so she kind of sees what I do for a living, and you're only a bad parent, and I couldn't really name one. If you're like, how can I, when you go to bed, like, how can I make my kid's life miserable? No parent does
Yeah.
that. Like, do we make mistakes? Holy man, like, we make tons, but as long as you have
Yeah.
that intent of, you know, I just want her first to have the same opportunities that I had, and I want her to
Yeah.
encourage her dreams, and I want her to live a healthy lifestyle. And I push a lot of girl power onto Alice, and I think that for me that's important. I kind of
Mhm.
grew up in a house of women, and man, that you can do anything you want, and it's 2020.
Can I can I can I read you my next question on my list of questions for you, Simon?
Give her.
So my next question was going to be, how do you think growing up with such close female role models affected you? Because I know you grew up, you and your mom very close, and your sisters. And I found for myself with Courtney, she was always such a big impact on me, that I feel like the way I view the world. I wonder if you think that your worldview has changed from that, because I know you have, and maybe how have you pass it on to Alice now?
Well, growing up in a house of women, and my dad also was, I think, a kind of a modern feminist too. But it's hard to really put it into words. But for us,
Hmm.
there's nothing that the two girls, my older sisters, were never boxed into. You're going to be. Actually, my older sister was the one that was supposed to be taking over my dad's business, and that it didn't go as planned, but so my dad was fully trusting in his
Yeah.
daughter to take over, and my mom is a very very strong woman also, and but um, it's also something that's just it's either in you or not. To be brutally honest with you, being away from home for 10 years, you're out of sight, out of mind. So our relationship kind of
Mm-hmm.
drifted through the years, but nonetheless, I want my daughter to feel, or at least to be 100% convinced that it's not because she's a girl that there's limitations
Mm-hmm.
to what she can do. And I think that she's right there. I think she's on the track, and
That's
uh,
awesome.
yeah, I honestly do. So how big an impact can I have? Limited, because I see her, 2 weeks here, a week there, a week there. But when it's there, you
Mm-hmm.
want to impact that, or when because now like she texts, and when she texts or FaceTime, and you always want to make sure that you empower them, and
Mm-hmm.
to let her know that she's she's the boss, not the little boys.
Yeah, exactly.
Young boys are
Yeah.
stupid.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Young men are
So then I had another question. I think this one might be kind of hard to answer because it kind of just came up as I was thinking. But as much as you can cast your mind back to when you were 25 sitting at Boston Pizza before that text came in or that Facebook message, what were your thoughts on kids and parenthood at that point? Just before then, or maybe in the couple years before then, had you ever thought about kids? Had you
I always wanted to be a dad. And I always got along with kids.
Yeah.
I um I'm excited with my son to try a different approach than the one that I had
Yeah.
growing up. Um, it's a big
Hmm.
motivation factor for me. I know I'm going to make a ton of mistakes, but even at 25, it's not like I'm not having kids and then you have one, and you kind of your
Yeah.
whole world. I always wanted kids, and I had a girlfriend at the time, and
Yeah.
and I could see myself having kids with her down the road, and then. So then Alice came, and just like that, I had a
Fit
really
right in.
yeah. So no, that never changed my plans. That would have been extra difficult. Like, can you imagine a young professional who is so into his career and has a very focused plan, and kids are not a part of it? That would have been extra difficult. But I always wanted kids. I was always excited to have kids. I am super excited for my son to be born. A little bit nervous because the
Hmm.
situation and all the negativity that surrounds COVID and how it impacts work and everything else. But
Hmm.
super pumped, and not to get ahead, but I'm already thinking about number three and maybe number four, and
There you go.
I just
Yeah.
want to have them all sitting there on the table and have smart discussions and empower them to just be good people, and that's a big dream of mine. So, but we'll start with
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
the little guy we're expecting him October 2nd, so we got everything ready for him. We just need him to show up.
Oh yeah, well, you'll have lots of help from I know my mom. If there's ever a baby within 6 kilometers, she has some sort of special sense and goes and steals it every time. Forever at a wedding or a conference, you look away for 2 seconds, she's got a baby in her arms. So I'm sure you guys will have a couple nights off. And she'll be taking
Yeah,
them from you.
but she's just so good with them. It's like a natural
I
instinct.
know, I know, I know.
That's funny.
I'm very lucky to be raised. Yeah, I know. It's funny because I always tell people that and I joke around about it, but then they actually see her in action. They see her stealing babies, and yeah, no, I wasn't kidding. She's about that life. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh
That's
man. Oh, that's
these
awesome.
kids too. She just, yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. Well, it's funny to go now that all of our cousins and people in our campsite in Penticton are having kids just to see, all these little rugrats running around. She's just in her element. She's going to Walmart every day buying all these toys, buying Orbeez, filling up. She's just there. If she if she had any sort of impact over whether me and Courtney could have kids at a certain age or not, she would be just pulling that lever every time she could. She wants grandkids more than anyone I've ever seen.
Oh yeah,
That
I remember a couple of years ago
crazy lady.
when Alice came visiting, and Jason and his family were visiting, and we were hanging out at the beach, and if you put yourself in Alice's shoes, she comes from a different province, doesn't come in very often, and she's going to meet new kids, and they're shy, and they're again outside the comfort
Yeah.
zone. It literally took 2 minutes, with Lori, Bryn, and Sydney, and your mom. It was just like the girls were doing their thing, and she's got a real talent for that.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, well, that's an amazing story, and I think that's kind of a beautiful way to end it, Simon. I think you went through that journey, and I think we got to see how much it brought you forward and brought you to a place that I think I'm really proud of who you've came to be. And now you're just on to the next step, and you're so excited for it, and to hear you have all these big plans for the future of where it's going to be. I can't wait to see how much more you grow having another child in this life, and I can't wait to be there for him. Uncle Nick, I'm going to be the one giving him his first fifth of whiskey, sneak it to him at 14, and all that exciting stuff. I get the privilege to be, but
No Oilers jerseys. No Oilers jerseys. No Oilers.
yeah. Oh, we'll have him in the copper and blue. Don't you worry. Yeah, we'll have him his first NHL game will be at Rogers. Oh, it's going to be beautiful.
What about you? How do you feel about kids, Nick?
What's that? I have changed over the years. I think I love kids. I love being around kids. Like when kids are around, I have so much fun. Still at this point, I don't think I'm ready to have my own, but I think it's more so because of my own laziness and how much I enjoy my free time, and I just don't think I'm ready for it. But I do want kids quite badly. I think over the last couple of years, I've realized the importance of it, and just what a special task it is, and how much you grow as a person. I think a big part of that goes out to you, Simon, too, and watching the personal growth that you went through, and just realizing the importance of it. And the more I realize how much my parents did and what they put in to make me who I am, I think it really pushes me more towards wanting to do that for other people. And I think you see the way the world's going, and like you say, it's scary. There's a lot of scary things out there, but I think there's also it speaks to the need of good, loving parents to bring that love into the world. I think there's so much hate and so much fear, and everyone bringing it in. I think the biggest net growth factors of positivity and love that you can bring is bringing a child into the world and letting them spread it from you. You can only do so much in a day of bringing happiness to people, but if you can grow a beautiful human that can grow to bring love and happiness to other people by just being a good person, I think just exponentially what you bring into the world is more powerful than almost anything you can do.
I
I think
agree.
you'd have to start a lot of I think you'd have to build a lot of nonprofits and a lot of do a lot of good for the world just to equal out what one good, well-raised, loving child can bring to the world, right? And I think I've more and more so I'm coming to that realization of how important that is. And I think people like you and watching my cousins around me that are a couple years older, because I was the youngest child all the time, watching the love that they can bring and just how amazing their kids are. I just see that. Not that I'm ready yet. I mean, I'm only 26, and I think, but I think definitely now, it was always kind of a thing where I really love kids, but I never knew if I wanted my own kids. But I knew I wasn't ready regardless. It didn't matter because I knew I wasn't ready. But now I think I know that I do want kids, but I know I'm not ready. But I think I have half the cards out on the deck there. I just need to get it to a point where I'm ready. And it's stuff like this. I've always wanted to kind of chase my dreams. I always kind of but I always felt that there was something missing from what I was doing. There was something more I could do, something more I wanted to get laid down. So I think starting this and growing this to a certain point is something that would definitely be one of those things I would want to do before I had kids. So I think that's another big first step into starting to do those. I think I'm on my way there, but just need a couple more years of sitting around having fun before I lock my.
Who knows? You might get a Facebook message and
Hey, who knows exactly? And that's the kind of thing I got to, but like you say, I think that's also another big piece is really, I think the difference of me, if I got a Facebook message like that today versus maybe 2 years ago, I think I'd be in crazily different spots between those two, kind of where you said, like, I think now I would be in that position where I could go, if I got that text, I would be able to handle it like you did of, you know what, I'm going to love this kid so much and I'm going to do all these things right. And it doesn't matter what happened because this is what the right thing to do is, and I know I'm going to love this kid, I think I'd be in a good position to do that now. Where I think if it was a couple years ago, I would have kind of reacted how I did when I got that text from you the first time at 19. My head was spinning. Oh my God, what are you going to do? All these things. And then you immediately, and I'm so glad you said this quick, you jumped right in to say, no, I love this kid, I'm going to do it, because then I could kind of follow your lead. But I was right there ready to just freak out with you, right? Because in my head, that was the only reasonable thing to do at that point was, run around like a chicken with my head cut off. At that point, I was scared shitless for you, and you were so ready to step up. I was that might have been the most impressive I've ever been with you in my lifetime, was that day, and hearing how you handled that. It was quite impressive. And I mean, I think that's always inside of us, what we have when the cards are down. I think society's gotten to a point where it's very soft, and you don't ever get to see the full extent of what people are made of anymore. And I think there's only certain situations that you can be thrown in. And I mean, losing that 4.5 years is tons of fear, and all the things that you said on this podcast that you had to go through too. But I think on the other side of it, not many people will go through such a life-changing event like you did. And I think that's something you can take pride in. It showed who you were, and it was something to be proud of, right? And I think a lot of more people are trying to put themselves into situations like that to see what they're made of, and not a lot of people get to. So I think if you're forced into it like you were, I think you can take solace in the fact that you handled it extremely well, and you came out of it on the other side a better person, and you
Yeah,
are helping bring another good person into the world.
it's an investment too. Like if you keep investing time and love and appreciation and putting yourself maybe a little bit second, so she gets all the growth she needs. Who knows? We might be best friends by the time she's 16, 17, 18,
Exactly.
and obviously, all I want is for her to be happy and healthy. But I'm
Yeah.
a little bit more ambitious than that, where I just cannot wait to just have that strong relationship with her. And I really think we're on the right track here. You build up on these little visits and stuff, and then create memories. And when they're
Yeah.
4, like she barely remembers, like me not being around, and or
Mm-hmm.
how things were that it's kind of vague for her, but things we did at 8 or 9 or 10, and now it's really
Mm-hmm.
uh, these are things that she'll remember forever, and that's why they're
For
that much
sure.
important to do things right, and to do things with um, how can I say it, with a lot of meaning and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
genuine, and she'll wake up one day, hopefully or not, and say, "Wow, like he was put in a situation that not too many people go through, and he did the best he could, and kudos to him." And that's all I can kind of hope for.
Mm-hmm.
But even if she doesn't come to that, I still love her so much, just because she's absolutely perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome, Simon. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you so much for being so honest about all these things. I think a lot of people are really gonna get a lot out of that, because I know we said it's kind of an unusual situation, but it's not that uncommon. I'm sure there's probably a couple people that'll eventually listen to this and get a lot out of that, or maybe put in a situation after the fact and maybe handle it a little better than they would have otherwise, having heard how you handle it. And I think that goes a long way. There's a lot at stake when there's a kid involved, and I think that can be the difference, like we talked about, is someone coming through with love in the world and all that can handle. I think handling that situation in a different way can put some people on a bad path that can cause a lot of hurt in the world. And I think that is a momentous thing that you did. And I think having people hear that and maybe make that choice is just another thing we can do to try and put more love out in the world, and have more good, happy kids growing up around the
I
world.
agree 100%, 100%. And
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Simon. And I love you, brother.
I
Always
love
have. And I
you,
like to say that to my friends. So.
and keep doing this. It takes a lot of courage, and when you brought it up, I'm like, okay, well, yeah, you'll probably have to set up in the next year or so. And it was like a month later, you had episodes out and a logo. Now you can see that intro
Yeah.
song. I think you're ready to rock and roll, and I'm gonna be your biggest fan, and I'll listen to all your episodes, and give you the constructive criticism that I can, and just wish you all the best. And I'm outside of the cast, so impressed with everything you do at work, and just how you conduct yourself. So keep it up, and maybe I'll come back on the show if you want me to.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure you'll be back on. Yeah, I'm sure he'll be back on many times over the years. Thanks again, Simon. I'll talk to you later.
Take care. Love you, brother.
There you have it, episode 7. Like I said, can't thank Simon enough for coming on and being vulnerable like that. I really don't think there's many people in the world that would have handled the situation he was put in with such grace and positivity, and spinning it around immediately to make sure that his little girl was going to be taken care of, and know the love that he could give. And I think that's just so admirable and so beautiful, and I think that is something that more people can hear. And I think if people can listen to that before and know that that is an option that can overwhelm some of maybe the other complex feelings you'd be feeling at that time, that is what should win out, and that is possible, and you don't have to give in to the anger and the hurt, and you can lean into that love and that compassion, and do the right thing in the situation you're put in. And I think that is a great message, and hopefully there's people that can take something from that. So yeah, thanks again everybody for coming in and listening. If you have any feedback, like I always say, send it to VonDubCast@gmail.com. Any guest suggestions, if you could leave a review or pass this on to somebody else, I'd really enjoy it. All right, thanks. See you next week.